So without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic to my colleague, Vera, to give you the Southeast Asian Makerspace Survey findings.
Hi, good morning everyone. So, as you know, we actually sent out this survey forms, right, to some of you. And thanks to those who responded. I think we had 17 respondents from different spaces. Although we have many more logos over there on the slide, so I think not everybody responded, but that's alright. The survey will remain open for you to respond. Hopefully, we'll do this annually and also improve the, you can see the kind of responses that will change over time as well. So the idea for this largely came from two surveys which I participated in. As you know, actually in Make Magazine, we run a survey as well, MakerCon, we run a survey on makerspaces around the world. Most of the makerspaces are from the US and Europe, so they tend to always skew the results in favor of something else that is not quite accurate, right? What happens here. Second thing was that Nesta. Nesta is a social innovation lab that is based in the UK. So they did a makerspace survey of just UK alone, right? Just the countries alone. So they gave us the idea to say that, you know, since we're having this summit and all you are coming over here, why not? You know, we do a survey of the spaces and what you guys are doing in this region, right? And we can see if there's anything unique or different than from the other surveys that we have all published out there. So all the data is anonymized. You shouldn't be able to tell who's doing what exactly. So we aggregated it and we'll keep your information with your first confidence as well. So 17 participating makerspaces for this particular survey, mostly in Indonesia, Thailand, followed by Malaysia, and a couple from Vietnam, Cambodia, and Singapore. Right? So the most makerspaces, as it turns out, were only set up about 3 years ago. Right? From 2013 onwards, that's when you start seeing a very sudden boom. And I expect that this thing will hold as well. I think in the coming years we'll see many more spaces being set up. Generally, there's all kinds of different sizes. So the sizes part over here, I took some liberties here mainly because I forgot in the survey question to indicate whether it was square feet or square meters. Alright? So, and there's a huge difference between square feet and square meters. So this part over here, I might call all of you individually later on and ask you what exactly you meant when you put a number over there. So maybe the space sizing thing is not super accurate, because I know some spaces are actually pretty large, right? Most of the spaces actually do not have full ownership of the space. They're either in a short-term lease or temporary space. And this raises some issues because rental cost always goes up, right? Generally, that's the one truth that holds the property market. Rental costs always go up, which means the viability of spaces, the profitability has to keep increasing as well. You cannot keep it at the same level, otherwise it will be priced out of the market eventually. So most of the bigger spaces are open to public, but just 65%, we wish it would be much higher. Right? And human traffic, I mean, is varies wildly. I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of marketing being done, and also the location of the spaces, whether they are in the city center or they're a little bit in the outskirts. We talk about public access over here because when we talk about growing the maker movement, we want to actually have other people join it, right? And a good way to ensure that is by having it publicly accessible. So in terms of the minimum age range, someone that's 3 years old, I have no idea how this works. Okay? You must show us photos of how a 3-year-old works in Makerspace. I would pay money to see that. And 15 years old, this is the minimum age. So in Singapore, I know that we have certain laws over here. So for insurance reasons, we cannot have anyone below 15 years old unless they're accompanied by parents. But otherwise, yeah, I think sometimes the Wild West when it comes to these things. So, as expected, as a trend that holds largely in many places, is that makerspaces are dominated by men, as you can see over here, alright? Mostly men over here. And women just make up 20%. Now, the figures are actually much lower for women actually in Southeast Asia, as opposed to the ones that you see in the US and the European surveys. Over there, it's 60-40 rather. So 80-20 is very skewed in terms of favor of the men. And this is something we want to take into consideration. Membership programs, interestingly, only some makerspaces have membership programs. And I think it comes to a realization that membership programs may not particularly be practical in this context, because we talked yesterday about limited sort of DIY culture, to be able to have people pay for membership for something that they are very resistant to. So makerspaces in this region, actually, quite a number of them are even looking at different kind of business models, which I think could be something that we could all try and discover. To give an idea, in the US and Europe, membership space, in the US for example, majority of spaces are membership spaces. It's nowhere like this, right? It's over here we have almost like a half split. So in terms of memberships, I think the Thai Makerspace has the most number of members, mainly because I think the more spaces are a bit more developed in this respect. The rest of the spaces actually have quite a few members, but I think members still will qualify because there are a lot of users of the space sometimes, but not able to sign on memberships. So in fact, if we had to do this again, I'll rephrase the question over here and be more specific about what we mean by members and what we mean by users of the space. So in terms of top 3 reasons why people want to use the Makerspace. By the way, we'll put all this up, so that you can have it, so you can get the nice resolution images. You don't have to take the crappy photographs. One is to be part of a community. I think this is like what we mentioned about people as a part of the community, and this thing holds very strong over here. And also learning new skills and using resources. So when people think of a space and say, oh, Makerspaces, I want to have access to a place to do things. It turns out that's actually the third thing. What people want to feel is a human connection. That's the first thing. And then secondly is, of course, they want to experience and learn new skills. Then only comes the, I want to use some cool tools to do certain stuff. In terms of range of services, quite a wide number of things that are being done. Interestingly, exhibition agency came up, and I started to put it up there because I think a lot of you run events, correct? So I mean, one of the ways to think about it is that Makerspaces could translate the events business, right, into doing exhibitions. And in fact, even at OMG, we do run some exhibitions. One we ran last year was the Makers Block through the SGMA. So this could also be a business model, by the way, just running exhibitions. Right, welcome, please come in. In terms of common tools in Makerspaces, generally, by far, it is quite 3D printer and electronics centric. And this, I think there's 2 reasons mainly, I suppose, for why this is happening. Mainly because 3D printers and electronics are quite sexy, right? Everyone, wow, 3D printer, they want to see what it's all about. You put a table saw over there, it's not as exciting, I suppose. The second thing is that the price of these things are much lower. Like for example, in Singapore with $1,500, you could have a full form electronic setup. Everything, oscilloscope, power supply, the works basically. If you want to do a full form electronic, full form setup for machining, it's going to set you back $50,000. So it's an order of magnitude, some orders of magnitude difference rather. I think in terms of facilities, some of the interesting things you've seen that some of you set up libraries, you've created child family spaces as well. And one of the things that we want to include children in making as well, which means that we have to reconceptualize how a makerspace would look like. Right now we're designing for ourselves, adults, right? So how would a safe space look like without being a playground, and without being a complete like foam everywhere, protecting like every single thing. So we have to balance between some risk and certain safety elements as well. In terms of people being involved in running operations of makerspaces, generally 5 to 7 people. The biggest ones that we see are 20 people running day-to-day operations, so it can be a fairly big setup. And then people involved running here are volunteers, so we have fully non-volunteer run ones, and we have also all completely volunteer run ones. But generally, I think most spaces that we've seen have about 30 to 40% of volunteers running the space. It means it's a hybrid model, right? Having some volunteers, having some paid staff doing it. And this will be interesting for you to share with each other how exactly you go about doing that. So structure makerspaces, most are private companies in this part of the world. Notice that there's very good government. Okay, the percentages don't add up obviously, so there are some other options as well which are very minor, so we don't do it there. But makerspaces are largely self-funded in this part of the world. Mainly, and this is because we talked to some of you as well. What we understand is that some of you have had successful businesses, right? We made some good money from there and we use that money to fund the work we do over here. And others basically working off grants and so on. So in terms of profitability, quite an interesting response actually. More than half say they're profitable. But I guess the question is how profitable, right? So we didn't ask that question unfortunately. We did ask if people were willing to share what their revenue figures were. We decided against putting it up because first we didn't have too many responses, and secondly because we felt that maybe that was a bit too intrusive, so we decided not to put up that answer to response to that. So in terms of engagement with the community and how they're working with each other, the network effects of a makerspace. So many of you are doing wonderful things. I mean, let's look at all of you over here, and you guys already knew each other before you came here. I think that speaks for itself. But in terms of contributing open source projects, I think definitely maker movement or maker spaces, they should, all spaces if possible, should contribute to this particular open source movement, because it is such a wonderful gateway for people to enter and come into the world of making, in the world of maker spaces. Usually people start, I find, with interest in something, and then they explore it, they find an open source project somewhere, they come and join it and get involved, right? And then suddenly they become part of the team, they start doing other interesting things as well. So in terms of collaboration maker spaces, we would like to see 100%, right? And I think this is the first step. All of you are over here. I wish you all the best in talking to each other and coming up with stuff. So I also asked two questions. One is, what are the challenges that's been being faced, right? And this is some of the response that we got. So it's to buy tools, all right, but toys to a lot of us, operating the space. That's really need money for that, right? And then marketing. And I used to do marketing here, but what the responses came were actually about, they want to amplify the maker culture, tell people about it, they want to make making mainstream. And not be, you guys are weird, you guys are down there doing something strange in the corner and thing. But make it mainstream and make it part of the human experience. The third thing is, of course, people itself, how to drive company, how to retain people, everything to do with manpower, human resource management in the traditional business sense, right? But with makerspaces, I think we will think a lot harder about what those motivations are and how they want to work with that. So that being said, I asked this question on the challenges with what do we require, and I expected the answers to be related to challenges, but instead I got this: tools, connections, and money, right? So I was very puzzled, and I'll explain to you why in a bit, because some thoughts I had was that there was a fair bit of inconsistency between the challenges and what help people felt they required. On one hand, the challenges are that we have trouble getting people, but then we say, oh, we want more tools, and it's as though more tools will solve the problem. I think there's some kind of disconnect there. So I think it's worth investigating what the disconnect is. Of course, involving women maker spaces, the thing is that there are many sayings, I can't remember right now, but women and men hold the world together half and half, right? So I think if we really want to make making mainstream, then we have to seriously think about how to involve women in maker spaces. And I wish every maker space gives some really serious thought to that. Of course, don't think the men alone, basically involve them in the thinking process and come up with some interesting ideas. And please share, because this problem is something that's being faced on maker spaces all over the world. All over the world. We are not unique in this respect. Right? There's a lot of gender biases associated with making things, building things, engineering, and so on, which is not true. Right? It's not actually true. Of course, the other thing of these models is that in seeing that many of you did not actually run memberships, right, that interested me, because it's membership the only way of doing it. And actually, many of the bigger spaces, when we ask what the core activities that you do, you guys give a whole range of things. It makes me wonder that maybe makerspaces are unique in the sense that, unlike a normal business where they tell you focus, for a makerspace, maybe you have to diversify and allow the diversification, the various things that you do, add to each other. And I think in talking to many of you, that's kind of sense I'm getting, is that you are doing several things because, and you don't want to stop doing any one thing because it all adds to each other and allows you to do the work that you do. And of course, ensure profitability as well. So in terms of financing maker spaces, many of you are self-funded, and good for those people who are self-funded. You guys have done well for yourself. But what about those who actually do not have the financing to begin with? Meaning we may not come from a money family, or may not have run a business successfully before, just starting out in school perhaps. I think it's worth considering how we can bring financing over the makerspace approaches as well. So in thinking about this, I think one thing I wanted to share with all of you is the whole idea of makerspaces and talking about it as a space of just having tools and space over there. I would like to propose a different way of thinking about it. Because when I started makerspaces 4.5 years back, one of the things that deeply troubled me was the fact that makerspaces was seen just as a space with tools. And I thought that is a really sad way of putting it, because makerspaces are so much more than that. So what do I mean by makerspace is it just a space? In thinking about makerspaces, it might be useful to consider a couple of things. Right? Firstly is that what is the intent? why are we starting a Makerspace first of all? Right? Is it to do product development? Is it to do humanitarian related work? Is it to allow children to get involved in innovation, like our friends in Malaysia? So we need to decide what the space is intended to do. And this intention is very important because it will carry the flavor of the space. Otherwise, every space will look like every other space, right? And I think that's what we're seeing. A lot of spaces look very similar. In fact, it's very hard to tell the pictures which space it does. So I think in this way we can create a new flavor, right? The second thing is about initiatives. So notice here, I'm not talking about space yet. If you have an intent, you have to gather people around intent. What makes a Makerspace different is that you need people around it, right? You need people to build a community, to come around it, and you can actually start with very, very small initiatives, small things that you do to build community, build people around the intent. And we have enough people around the intent, then only then you decide, okay, let's go get the space, let's go get the ingredients, let's go get the tools, let's be able to do these things. So this is the model, but the end of goal, how we measure what we do is the impact, right? It's the impact on the intent that we have. And Makerspaces, we have to measure how well we're doing. Not in terms of profitability alone, but in terms of what impact are we having. I think we are in a very unique position in Makerspace. Someone's running the business, yes, but I think a lot of us wanted to do this thing, started this journey because we wanted to make an impact. And the only way to be able to tell how far well we've done is to measure the impact. Almost like social enterprises, they all measure the impact as well. So I'm going to just leave you with this is the last thing. Basically, I hope in sharing these things, it generates a bit more conversation. And of course, later on in the panel session, I look forward to a very lively discussion in terms of what these means, right? And of course, it's not, as in only 17 Makerspaces have done this thing. Of course, there are many more logos in this one slide that Makerspaces have not actually participated in the survey yet, which means that these results may not be completely accurate. It may not, be completely reflective of what's actually going on over here. So, if that's the case, I encourage you to voice it out. Tell us how else you are looking at these things, how else you're thinking about these things, and hopefully we can grow the movement together. Right? Thank you very much.